It all started like a perfect love story. A happy couple, living a normal life, just like any other married pair. The husband was a hard-working man, always trying to give his wife the best life possible. They had been married for several years, sharing countless memories together. From the outside, everything looked fine, but behind the closed doors, something was silently breaking their bond. The wife worked in a private company as an employee in the HR department. Every morning, she left for work with a smile on her face. The husband trusted her completely, never questioning where she was or who she talked to. But what he didn't know was that his trust was slowly turning into his biggest mistake. The wife's office life was not just about work anymore. There was someone who had started to occupy her mind more than her own husband. The HR manager of the company, a well-spoken, charming man, had been working with her for a while. At first, their conversations were just about work. Simple discussions about projects and meetings. But slowly, those conversations started to shift. A friendly smile here, a casual compliment there, little things that often go unnoticed. No one would suspect that something so small could one day destroy everything. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between the wife and the HR manager started growing stronger. They would spend extra minutes together after meetings, sharing jokes and laughter. Sometimes he would text her late at night, asking if she reached home safely. The wife always replied with a smile on her face, hiding the chats from her husband. What started as simple care was turning into something deeper, something dangerous. The husband remained unaware, busy in his own world, working day and night to build their future. He believed his wife was his soulmate, someone who would never betray him. Little did he know, the woman he loved the most was slowly slipping away from him. The signs were there, but love often makes people blind. The late-night phone calls, sudden change in behavior, and the extra attention towards her appearance. All were signals that something was not right. But the husband trusted her blindly, never thinking for a second that his wife could be hiding such a dark secret. The wife started coming home late, giving excuses about extra work or office meetings. The husband, without a doubt in his mind, always accepted her reasons. Every night, he waited for her to return, while she was out sharing moments with someone else. The HR manager knew exactly how to play his cards, making her feel special in ways the husband couldn't. Slowly, the emotional distance between the husband and wife kept growing. Even at home, the wife's behavior started changing. She would avoid conversations, stay glued to her phone, and often snap at small things. The husband noticed a change, but convinced himself that she was just stressed from work. His love for her was so deep that he couldn't imagine her breaking his trust. But the truth was much darker than he could ever imagine. People often say that secrets have a way of revealing themselves. And this secret was about to come out in the most shocking way possible. The wife's double life was slowly reaching its breaking point. The husband was living in a dream, unaware that his whole world was about to shatter into pieces. The betrayal was already happening right under his nose. He just hadn't seen it yet. As the days passed, the wife's hidden desires started to take control of her. What began as harmless conversations with the HR manager had now turned into something she couldn't resist. Every morning, she waited eagerly to reach the office, not for work, but to see him. The way he spoke, the way he made her feel special, was something she hadn't felt in years. Her heart raced every time his name appeared on her phone screen. The secret chats between them became more frequent. What started with simple work-related messages slowly turned into flirty conversations. He would compliment her looks, call her beautiful, and make her feel wanted. She blushed reading those messages, forgetting that there was a husband waiting for her at home. The HR manager knew exactly what he was doing. He played his game carefully, never rushing, always making her feel like it was just an innocent friendship. Their meetings at the office became longer. Lunch breaks that used to last 30 minutes started stretching to an hour. They would sit together in the cafeteria, laughing and sharing personal stories. The wife found comfort in his words, something she felt was missing in her marriage. The small talks turned into stolen glances, and those glances turned into something more. She started looking for excuses to stay late at the office, just to spend a little more time with him. Her phone became her new world. Even at home, she would secretly chat with him while sitting right next to her husband. She would smile at her phone, pretending it was some office joke, while her husband sat there completely unaware. The late-night conversations became regular, with the wife sneaking into another room just to talk freely. Her heart was torn between two lives, one with a man she had promised to spend her life with, and the other with a man who made her feel alive again. The HR manager was smart. He never pushed too hard. He knew how to make her feel wanted without crossing the line too soon. He would tell her how special she was, how lucky her husband must be to have her. These words made her feel valued, something she hadn't felt from her husband in a long time. Slowly, she started believing that she deserved more. Her mind began playing tricks on her. Every small fight with her husband became an excuse to text the HR manager. Whenever her husband ignored her or came home tired from work, she would think about how the HR manager always listened to her. The distance between the couple kept growing, while the secret bond between the wife and her colleague kept getting stronger. The wife's appearance started changing too. She began dressing more carefully, putting on makeup every day before going to the office. The husband noticed the changes but brushed them off, thinking she was just trying to feel better about herself. He had no idea that the woman he loved was dressing up for someone else. Office parties and business trips became the perfect opportunity for the affair to bloom. Late-night drinks, casual touches, and stolen moments behind closed doors. Everything was happening right under everyone's nose. They thought they were careful, but people had started noticing. Whispers began spreading in the office, but no one dared to speak out loud. The wife felt guilty at times, but the excitement of the secret relationship always pushed the guilt aside. The HR manager made her feel young again, like she was living in a dream. The fear of getting caught made everything even more thrilling. Every time she was with him, she forgot about the world outside. But what she didn't know was that every lie, every secret message, was leaving behind a trail. The walls were closing in, and the hidden affair was slowly becoming harder to hide. The husband still trusted her blindly, but cracks were starting to show. The late nights, the distant behavior, and the sudden attachment to her phone were signs he couldn't ignore forever. The wife's heart was playing a dangerous game, torn between the thrill of forbidden love and the fear of losing everything she had built. The HR manager's charm had completely taken over her mind, making her forget the life she had once dreamed with her husband. The betrayal was getting deeper with every passing day, and the truth was inching closer to the surface. What felt like a secret between two people was slowly turning into a ticking time bomb, one that could destroy not just one life, but many. The wife was trapped between two worlds, unaware that both were about to collide in the most devastating way possible. The days of hidden smiles and secret chats were slowly turning into nights filled with fear. The wife's heart raced every time her phone buzzed, afraid that one wrong message could shatter everything. But no matter how much she tried to hide it, fate always finds a way to expose the truth. The husband's mind had started picking up on the little things, the sudden change in behavior, the constant phone usage, and the late nights that had become more frequent. At first, he pushed away his doubts, convincing himself that it was just work stress. But the small voice inside him kept whispering that something was not right. One night, as the wife was in the shower, the husband glanced at her phone lying on the table. His heart pounded in his chest. He never believed in checking his wife's phone. Trust was the foundation of their marriage. But that night, something inside him broke. With trembling hands, he picked up the phone and unlocked it. What he saw froze him in place. Dozens of messages from an unknown number. The chats were deleted, but a few missed notifications revealed just enough. Sweet words, late-night conversations, and emojis that no one would ever send to a colleague. His mind went blank. The woman he had loved with all his heart was hiding something that could destroy everything they had built together. He placed the phone back exactly where it was and sat silently in the darkness. His heart was heavy, but he couldn't confront her yet. He needed proof, something undeniable. Over the next few days, the husband started observing every little move. He noticed how she would smile at her phone or quickly lock the screen whenever he walked into the room. The late nights at the office became more frequent, and her excuses became weaker. The woman who once shared every small detail of her day now barely spoke to him. The tension in the house was thick, but the wife had no idea that her husband was silently watching her every step. He started checking her phone when she was asleep, carefully reading the deleted messages through backup apps. What he found broke him even more. The HR manager's name appeared again and again, messages filled with affection, secret plans, and promises of meeting in hidden places. The husband felt his world crumbling beneath him. The woman he had trusted more than anything was sharing her heart with someone else. Anger started burning inside him, but he kept it hidden behind a calm face. He didn't want to lose control. He wanted to catch them red-handed. Days turned into sleepless nights as the husband started following his wife without her knowledge. He would wait outside her office, watching her from a distance as she walked out with the HR manager, laughing and sharing moments that were supposed to be his. Every smile she gave to that man felt like a knife stabbing deeper into his heart. The husband's mind was a storm of pain and fury, but he still couldn't confront her. He wanted her to confess. He wanted her to break the lies with her own mouth. The wife, completely unaware of the storm building inside her husband, kept playing her dangerous game. She thought she was clever, hiding behind fake meetings and work calls. But no secret stays hidden forever. One night, the husband decided to set a trap. He told his wife he would be working late and wouldn't be home until midnight. The wife's face lit up for a second before she quickly masked her excitement. She nodded, pretending to be disappointed. As the husband walked out of the house, he left his phone behind to make her believe he was truly gone. But instead of heading to work, he parked his car a few streets away and waited in the shadows. Minutes passed like hours. The lights in their house remained on, but the wife didn't leave. Then, just when the clock struck 10, her phone rang. The husband watched from a distance as his wife answered the call with a smile on her face. Moments later, she grabbed her purse and walked out of the house, her eyes scanning the street. Without wasting a second, the husband followed her silently. His heart was pounding, but his hands remained steady. He had waited too long for this moment. The wife walked to a nearby hotel, where the HR manager was already waiting. They greeted each other like lovers who had been longing to meet. The husband stood hidden in the shadows, watching everything with eyes filled with tears and rage. His mind screamed at him to rush in and confront them, but he held himself back. He needed more proof. He pulled out his phone and started recording every second of betrayal. His world was collapsing before his eyes, but he remained silent. His heart was breaking with every passing second, but the fire inside him kept him going. The woman he had loved, the woman he had trusted with his life, was now laughing in the arms of another man. The betrayal was no longer just a suspicion. It was a truth carved deep into his soul. The husband returned home before his wife, pretending to be asleep. When she walked in later that night, he could smell the perfume that wasn't his. She slipped into bed without saying a word, unaware that the man sleeping next to her knew every lie she had told. The night passed in silence, but the storm inside the husband's heart was far from over. The truth had finally come out, but what would happen next was something no one could ever predict. The night passed in painful silence. The husband lay beside his wife, staring at the ceiling, his mind replaying every smile, every secret glance, and every moment of betrayal he had witnessed. His heart was heavy, but his eyes refused to close. The woman he had loved more than anything was now a stranger sleeping right next to him. The weight of the truth was crushing him from the inside, but he still held everything inside, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The next morning, the wife woke up as if nothing had happened. She carried on with her routine, getting ready for work, her face glowing with hidden excitement. The husband watched her carefully, pretending to be normal, but behind his calm eyes, his mind was already planning his next move. He wanted to know how far the betrayal had gone. How many lies had she told? How many nights had she spent in another man's arms? The day passed slowly, but the storm inside the husband kept growing. He couldn't focus on anything else. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his wife laughing with the HR manager, sharing the same moments that were once his. The pain was unbearable, but the anger was even stronger. He wanted answers, but more than that, he wanted revenge. That evening, the wife returned home late again, giving the same old excuse about extra work. The husband nodded silently, acting as if he believed her, but his eyes followed her every move. He noticed how she quickly hid her phone, how she smiled at the screen when she thought he wasn't looking. Every small action was a knife cutting deeper into his heart. The house that was once filled with love now felt like a prison of lies. The husband's patience was running out. He had been holding everything inside for too long. That night, while his wife was asleep, he unlocked her phone once again. This time, he went deeper, checking hidden folders, deleted messages, and secret apps. What he found made his blood boil. Photos, voice messages, and hotel bookings. Everything was there, clear as daylight. The woman he had trusted with his whole life had been living a double life right under his nose. His hands trembled as he stared at the evidence. His heart was breaking, but the anger was taking over. He wanted to wake her up right then and confront her. He wanted to scream, to demand answers, but something stopped him. His mind whispered that this wasn't enough. He needed to make her pay, not with words, but with something much darker. The next few days passed like a slow-burning fire. The husband kept pretending, smiling, and playing the role of a loving partner while gathering more proof. Every night, he watched his wife sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that her darkest secret was about to destroy her life. The betrayal had turned him into someone he never thought he could become, a man filled with rage and revenge. The breaking point finally came one night when the wife received a late-night message from the HR manager. The husband had installed a spy app on her phone, tracking every message and call without her knowledge. As soon as the message popped up, he read every word. They were planning to meet at the same hotel once again. The wife's fingers quickly deleted the message, thinking she had erased the evidence forever. But the husband had already seen everything. That night, the husband didn't sleep. He sat alone in the dark, staring at the walls with empty eyes. The love he once felt had turned into pure hatred. He had given her everything, his heart, his trust, his whole life, and she had thrown it all away for a few moments of pleasure. His mind was clouded with dark thoughts, and the line between love and revenge was slowly disappearing. The next day, the wife left home early, saying she had an important meeting at the office. The husband watched her leave, his heart pounding with a strange calmness. He waited for a few minutes, then followed her silently once again. This time, he didn't just want proof. He wanted to catch her red-handed. He parked his car near the hotel, his eyes fixed on the entrance. Hours passed, but his anger never faded. Finally, he saw them, the wife and the HR manager walking out of the hotel, laughing and holding hands. Every step they took together felt like a dagger stabbing deeper into his soul. His hands clenched the steering wheel tightly, but he didn't move. He watched them disappear into the distance, sealing their fate without even knowing it. The husband returned home before his wife, his mind completely consumed by darkness. He sat at the dining table, staring at the empty plates, waiting for her to return. When the wife finally walked in, she smiled as if nothing had happened. But this time, the husband couldn't hide his pain anymore. His eyes were cold, his face expressionless. Without saying a word, he handed her the phone, the same phone where every secret message was stored. The wife's smile faded instantly. Her hands trembled as she unlocked the screen, seeing all the proof right in front of her eyes. Her heart stopped. She tried to speak, but no words came out. The walls were closing in, and she knew there was no way out. The room fell into heavy silence, broken only by the sound of the ticking clock. The husband's eyes never left her face, watching every flicker of fear and guilt. The betrayal was no longer hidden. It was standing right between them, poisoning everything they had built together. The wife broke down into tears, begging for forgiveness, swearing that it was just a mistake. But the husband's heart had already turned to stone. He stood up slowly, his eyes cold and empty. His mind was no longer thinking about forgiveness or second chances. The pain had consumed every part of him, leaving behind only one thought: revenge. The wife cried, trying to hold his hand, but he pushed her away. The woman he had loved was gone. What stood before him was nothing but a liar, a betrayer who had destroyed everything. The night stretched into darkness as the storm inside the husband's mind reached its breaking point. No one knew what was going to happen next. The walls of their home were about to witness something that could never be undone. The husband's heart was no longer filled with love. It was burning with the cold fire of revenge. The wife's tears fell silently, her hands trembling as she begged for forgiveness. But the husband's cold eyes didn't blink. The woman who once meant everything to him was now nothing but a stranger standing in front of him. His mind was drowning in anger, but his face remained calm, too calm. The room was filled with a heavy silence, broken only by the ticking clock. Each second felt like a knife twisting deeper into his heart. The wife kept whispering excuses, saying it was just a mistake, that she had been lonely, that she never meant to hurt him. But the husband's ears refused to hear those words. His mind replayed every lie she had told, every night she had spent with the HR manager, the images of her smiling, holding hands, and sharing moments with another man burned inside him like fire. He clenched his fists under the table, holding back the storm building inside him. Without saying a word, he stood up and walked toward the kitchen. The wife followed behind, her voice shaking, trying to explain herself. But the husband stayed silent. His hands gripped a glass of water tightly, staring at the sink as if trying to control the rage boiling inside him. His mind was battling between forgiveness and revenge, but the pain was too deep, too fresh to let go. The wife's voice grew louder, her words turning into desperate cries. She begged him to understand, saying she had fallen into temptation, that the HR manager had manipulated her. But deep down, both of them knew the truth. No one forced her into those late-night meetings or secret chats. She had crossed the line willingly, breaking every promise she once made. The husband finally turned around, his eyes dark and empty. His voice came out low and cold, cutting through the silence like a knife. He asked her one simple question. Why? The wife's lips trembled, but no answer came. How could she explain the night she spent in another man's arms while her husband was waiting for her at home? How could she justify the betrayal when the truth was written in every message, every hidden smile? Tears rolled down her face, but the husband's heart remained frozen. The memories of their happy days together flashed before his eyes, the wedding vows, the laughter, the dreams they had built together. But now, those memories felt like a cruel joke. The woman he had loved was gone, replaced by someone he could no longer recognize. The silence between them stretched for what felt like hours. The wife's sobs filled the room, but the husband's face remained stone cold. His mind was slipping into a dark place where forgiveness had no meaning. He stared at her, his heart torn between love and hatred. But the pain of betrayal was far stronger than any love he had ever felt. Without warning, the husband walked toward the cupboard and pulled out a small hidden camera he had installed a few days ago. He placed it on the table, pressing play. The wife's face turned pale as the video started playing. Every meeting, every stolen glance, every touch between her and the HR manager was captured in crystal clear footage. There was no room for lies anymore. The wife's legs gave out, and she collapsed on the floor, covering her face in shame. But the husband's eyes stayed locked on her, unblinking. The proof was right in front of him. The woman he had given his whole life to have been lying to him for months. His heart pounded harder with each second, his breath heavy and uneven. He leaned down slowly, his voice barely above a whisper, asking her one last time if there was anything she wanted to confess. The wife's lips trembled, but she remained silent. The betrayal had eaten away every word she could ever say. The husband's eyes darkened, and a chilling smirk crept across his face, a smile that carried nothing but pain and anger. Without saying another word, he picked up her phone and dialed the HR manager's number. The wife's eyes widened in shock, her heart racing as the phone rang. The husband turned on the speaker, his gaze never leaving her face. When the HR manager answered the call, the husband's voice came out calm, almost emotionless. "She's all yours now." The HR manager's voice stuttered on the other end, completely unaware of who was speaking. The husband hung up without another word, throwing the phone across the room. The wife screamed, begging him not to do this, but it was too late. The husband's trust, love, and heart were already shattered into pieces. The air in the room felt heavy, filled with an invisible tension that could break at any second. The husband walked towards the door slowly, his mind clouded with dark thoughts. Every step he took felt like he was leaving behind the life he had once dreamed of. The wife cried louder, running after him, trying to hold him back, but he pushed her away without even looking at her face. He stopped at the door, his hand resting on the handle. His heart was pounding in his chest, but his face remained cold. He turned his head slightly, giving her one last glance. His voice came out low, carrying the weight of every broken promise. "You destroyed everything." Without waiting for a reply, he walked out of the house, leaving the wife alone in the silence of her own betrayal. The door closed behind him with a heavy thud, echoing through the empty walls. The wife's cries filled the house, but the husband never looked back. Outside, the cold night wrapped around him as he walked into the darkness. His mind was numb, his heart shattered, but his soul was burning with revenge. The man who once loved with all his heart was gone, replaced by someone who had nothing left to lose. The wife's betrayal had turned him into something else, something far more dangerous. The night was long, and the storm inside him was just beginning. What do you think pushed his husband to the edge, betrayal or the pain of broken trust? Should he have forgiven her, or was his silent revenge the only answer? These stories remind us how one small lie can destroy everything built over years. If you want to know more shocking crime stories like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to bring more spine-chilling stories that reveal the hidden truths behind closed doors. Hit the bell icon so you never miss the next twisted story.